Hey guys, Cameron and Bosley with Home 2 Canine Dog Training and Hope 2 Canine Rescue. It's pretty first thing in the morning here for us, and so please excuse our condition. We're both cleaning and taking dogs out and getting food prepped and not fully done ourselves. But I really wanted to shoot another episode of Rescue Dog Logs because I had a really awesome foster mama reach out to me and kind of bring up a super important topic around some issues that she's having with a dog she's had for quite a while that she can't get out of her home and placed in a forever family because of behavioral stuff. So I wanted to just chat with you guys and kind of double time here, if you don't mind, while I'm prepping meals. Sometimes this is as good as it gets and we just have to fit it in where we can. But it also kind of prompted me to recognize every single dog I have in right now with regard to the training side of things and the rescue side of things, which ultimately is all training side of things, are rescue dogs. So Bosley, my personal dog, came out of a rescue. Bella's a rescue. Wiley's a rescue. Duke is a rescue. And then in the other room here, we have Miss Nina, who's a rescue. And best of all, Miss Lucy, who was in a shelter for 6 months, labeled as animal aggressive. And then we pulled her and brought her in. She's done 3 weeks. Let me see if I can sharpen that a little bit. She's done 3 weeks with us, training program. She's technically finished the official board and train, and she's continuing on for more socialization work. So this is animal aggressive dog in a shelter for 6 months, couldn't find a home. Now she's been with us for nearly a month, and we have huge strides and progress being made with that dog. Like I said, every single one of these dogs right now are rescue dogs. They're all dogs that started in one home or with one path and intention and ended up needing a new forever family placement. So with Bosley, a little bit less of a story because he was 8-week-old puppy, but we brought him out of a purebred boxer rescue. Out of a boxer rescue. He was a purebred boxer, but born and immediately, I think he was actually born in the shelter. Both parents were dumped, and he was born in the shelter in California, moved to Washington Rescue. Now he lives back in California with us. So every single one of these dogs, in spite having one that started from the beginning with, its family, still was moved through the system, right? And it would have been very easy for this dog to end up like all of these others, where he was in one family for a bit and then got passed on again, because the issues that we see in foster care are really common and significant to the struggle to place dogs long term, once and for all, okay? So I want to talk about the reasons for that, right? So I'm prepping meals. I'm going to kind of double time here. I've got a lot of dogs to take care of this morning, and I've got to get to a vet appointment for Lucy, the aggressive dog in the other room. But here's the thing. Here's what we find happens a lot with rescue dogs. They go into foster placement, maybe a rescue pulls them with the intention of giving them better exposure and starts to market them and share them with the community at large. But while they're in foster care, while they're in, rescue or temporary housing, they get zero structure, zero rules, zero boundaries. Nobody tells them no. And so here we have a dog that is really excitable, right? Really amped up and aroused because the new surroundings are so stimulating and hard for them to process. And we also have a dog who has a history of cumulative stress because they've been passed around. You can't avoid it. They have cumulative stress because nothing has been constant, nothing has been reliable and hard and fast in terms of rules. Nothing is as structured as the shelter once they leave the shelter. So a lot of times we see the dog actually behave better in the shelter than they do in the foster home, because in the foster home, if there's no rules, no accountability, there's no intention for what we expect from the dog and no consistency in how we structure their days, we're gonna see behavior surface that didn't necessarily show up even in the shelter, right? And shelter dogs can show us a lot of bad behavior. They can be extremely stressed because of the stimulus going on around them. They can be extremely stressed because they're not getting any physical energy drain or mental energy drain in a quality way. but they can still have experienced more structure, which creates more calm and stability than some of the foster homes they'll end up in. So this is super important for you guys to recognize. Like, a lot of us think, heck, the dog gets out of a shelter, goes into a foster home. That's got to be 1,000,000% better, right? Than having that dog sit in, a cold cement pen somewhere and not have any regular interaction with people, not have any stuffy toys or cozy bedding or, lots of love and affection and couch access, right? The reality is that structure, that consistency, that I go out every day at the same time. This is how I receive my food every day the same way. There's no spoiling going on to create ego and attitude on the same level that we regularly see creep up in dogs who end up in a foster or adoptive home, right? But we're specifically making a video here to talk to fosters, because a lot of these fosters have great intentions, but they bring the dog home, they get stuck in the story, they feel bad for it, they prioritize the wrong stuff, and then they start to create a monster, right? Let me just get some food here, and then I will be right back with you. So really just want that to sink in a little bit for you guys, that oftentimes these dogs have better behavior and more accountability because they're in a shelter with a routine, a schedule, and the same expectations at every interaction with people than when they end up in a foster or adoptive home and they're allowed to really get away with murder. Nobody tells them no. All bets are off. They're allowed to pull on leash for the walks. They establish an understanding that there's no real leadership, so they become even more nervous, anxious, insecure, because they themselves have cumulative stress and they're nervous and anxious and insecure from everything that they've determined about the world around them thus far. And then they begin to make decisions and be executive and take action based on peanut butter pills. Based on, not peanut butter pills, but I'm making peanut butter pills, based on, their experiences, right? And the absence of any other information coming at them to counter that. So had somebody reach out with a dog who's been with them for a year because of behavioral issues, they've had a board and train somewhere, they have had behaviorists involved, all pure positive though, guys. This dog has not had firm rules, boundary structure, and accountability. So it's still sitting in its foster home, struggling to show itself in the best light and thus be successful finding a forever family. This dog has a lot of limitations and labels on it as dog aggressive or reactive, animal aggressive, not good with kids, not good with cats, right? This dog really is not a good dog, but the perception from the foster family, and this is so common, so I'm not shaming or blaming the family, I'm trying to share information to empower you guys to shift your thinking and actually help these dogs, like really rescue these dogs and help them be successful. So foster family is feeling bad for this dog. Foster family is sending empathy and affection in the direction of this dog because he had a rough life, he had a rough start, we feel bad for him. He's really sweet, he's got all these other great qualities when he's in his, in his right mind. He goes to the trainer apparently, or did, and didn't show the same behavior, comes right back to the foster family, and the behavior immediately returns. What does that tell you, right? We have a common denominator here, and it's the home environment. You're essentially the adopter once you've had a dog that long. And so you really can only look at your relationship dynamic at that point, not the dog themselves as having all the problems. Although the dog definitely can have problems. They can have cognitive processing problems. They can have problems, putting concepts together. They can have deeply rooted anxiety that's a result of even systemic issues. Like, is this dog fully healthy? Does this dog have something going on that nobody's actually taken a look at that would contribute to this, this behavior that's being perpetuated? Having not met this dog or many of your other foster dogs, guys, there's a lot that I wouldn't know, but I can tell you that generally it's going to be behavioral, and that's generally why dogs end up in shelters and rescues, right? It's the bulk of the reason why dogs get dumped. It's very seldom anything else. It can be that there's medical expenses that a family can't tackle. It can be that there are circumstances around housing or what have you that prohibit people from keeping their dog. But most of the time, it's behavioral. So if you can't get the behavioral stuff straightened out in the foster dynamic, doesn't do any good for the dog, pulling them out of the shelter, or transferring homes and having them continue to get mixed messages and be entitled and bratty and insecure, right? And have all this behavior stuff come out of that makes them not attracted to a new family. So hope I'm making sense, guys. What I really want to see happen is just education and awareness around the fact that these dogs have to be told no. You're not going to make progress with a dog who is entitled and bratty and has an attitude problem and who's insecure and anxious if you don't tell them no, if you don't tell them what isn't acceptable. And that has to happen through your energy, your dynamic, the mere, perception that you have, the way you look at this dog, let alone the actual mechanical and dynamic actions you take to correct behavior through keeping that leash on, getting collars and things in place that give that dog accountability and meaning, a motivation to make a different choice and to learn to experience comfort through calm, right? Comfort through respect and connection with their handler. This is really, really critical for foster families to provide. And it's a reason why we don't actually currently have a complete foster program. Because when we do set up our foster program, and it's in our plan and intention, it will be only people who've previously trained with us that understand just how critical it is to boot camp these foster dogs, to really, really give them extreme amounts of structure, rules, boundaries, accountability, and make them earn every single ounce of affection that they receive. It's just absolutely pivotal for them to be successful. And that's exactly what we do here in the training programs to get the results that we get. So I know it works, right? I know it works. So this is getting a little bit long in the tooth, but the super, super critical gist of this message is when you bring a foster dog home, you've got to get structure in place and you've got to tell it no. No jumping, no pushing, no rushing through crates and doors, no pulling on leash, no stealing stuff, no free affection. Affection includes food, cuddles, couch time, telling it it's darling and cute and you love it and it's amazing and beautiful and it can have whatever it wants and it should be happy forever because it's had such a hard life. Guys, you can't give that stuff out for free, right? Your dog is living in the moment. They're so ready to move on if you just set a new intention and you hold them accountable to it. But you've got to step up and do that work. You have to lead. We have a serious problem of absent leadership going on right now, both in dog raising, parenting, our country, not to get into a big whole other conversation here, but you've got to take action. You've got to stand up. You've got to lead. You've got to say no. And you do that through tools. You do that through consistent structure. You do that through your crating. You do that through leash, prong, remote collar, whatever it might be. But most of all, you do that through your attitude and your energy around what you know will move the dog forward, right? That it isn't going to just recover by being loved. It has to know a path to freedom, which starts with structure. All right, that's when it will feel loved. That's when it will have happiness and peace of mind. So I'm gonna wrap it up here. I'm gonna serve up some dogs. My own guy is hoping he's on the lineup, but he's not. We gotta do that in the house. And if you guys have more questions for me, you can always private message the page and I will get to those as soon as I can. You can also email us through hope2canine.com. All in all, we're gonna try to bring you these regular, hopefully supportive and instructional pieces of our program so that you can yourself start to really implement some of these things and influence the rescue world in a really significant way. Taking a dog out of a shelter, taking a dog out of a rescue, and fostering them with the intention of spoiling them rotten, it's not going to solve these issues we've got, guys. The problem is so much bigger than that. You've got to hold them accountable to being respectful, polite citizens, or no adoptive family is going to want to take them in. And then you're going to just collect them. You're going to get too many. You're not going to be able to help anymore. All right, does it sound familiar? I know there's a lot of you out there with bleeding hearts that have got yourselves into that situation. My mission is really to help empower you to stop that cycle and to truly help these dogs by teaching them to be good citizens, by teaching them to be respectful, well-mannered, to pay attention, to give you great default choices because they're not stressed out, they're not insecure, they're not tuned out and disconnected, and they're not entitled and bratty and have bad attitudes. All right? Okay, guys, we'll talk to you again real soon. Bosley, close us out so it doesn't give a crappy freeze frame on my face. Bye, guys.